We have all been out in public and have seen a child get a little bit fussy. Now, this happens every single day, but for individuals with autism, it can be much worse, going into a full-on meltdown. And that's the topic of today's conversation. What is a meltdown and how does it happen? And joining us now, we have the expert Tiffany Topkin, the Executive Director of Empowering Kids in Perham, to talk about meltdowns, why they happen, and what happens in the brain when that happens. So, Tiffany, let's just walk us through that. Now, what is a meltdown?
Good question. And a meltdown can look a little bit differently for every child. Some children will externalize their behaviors when they get upset, meaning they might hit, kick, throw something, scream. And other children may withdraw and have internalizing behaviors and negative thoughts and those kinds of things.
And so why do they happen?
So I'm going to talk a little bit about, like we said, the brain. So for example, this is a brain. So for a neurotypical individual, our brains are like this. Our thumb is the amygdala that controls our feelings, and our fingers here are the thinking part of our brain. They help keep us regulated. So when we experience a situation that makes us upset, our feelings kind of push out our thinking a little bit. We're responding a little bit more to our feelings, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to problem solve and process what's going on. Neurotypical individuals have the skills then to regulate their emotions and get their thinking back in control. Individuals that have autism are already kind of regulating at this state. They're heightened, they have more alertness. And when anybody experiences extreme emotions, we do what's called flipping our lids. And that's where we're responding solely on emotions, and we're not able to think through situations, to calm down, to regulate, to respond appropriately. So neurotypical individuals have this strength naturally in their brains to be able to experience an emotion and then regulate back. And they have this strength and flexibility in their brains. Individuals that have autism really struggle with that strength and flexibility. So a little situation neurotypical individuals can regulate through will require individuals that have autism to flip their lids and be extremely dysregulated.
And so if we see that happening somewhere, is there anything that we could do if we're witnessing that to help out the situation? Or, a lot of people might just kind of get nervous and stand there not knowing what to do, but what maybe should they do?
Good question. And that's a really challenging question because sometimes it can make the individual feel even more upset and afraid. So what I would suggest is, other than offering to do something, would be to change how we think and perceive what's happening and the conversations that we have with either our children or other individuals that we're with. So for example, if we see a child that's struggling with reading, we say, oh, that child is struggling. I have so much empathy for you. Let me help you. I'll give you a skill. I'll give you a clue. I'll tell you to look at the picture to try to figure out the word. I'm giving you this support. An individual that is having a meltdown is the same thing. They're not being manipulative or stubborn. They're not a naughty kid. It's not bad parents. It's that child is struggling with a skill, and that mom or dad or grandparent, whoever, is trying to support that child in that moment and give them the skills that they need to learn how to regulate. So I would suggest that the conversations that we have with the people that we're around and the way that we view the situation is what we can do as people who may see a meltdown happen.
And then for a parent or someone who is watching the child, there really isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to how to fix that, is there?
No, there's not. Every child is different. And I think the hardest part for parents is the judgment that they're feeling. So not only are they struggling to connect with their child in that moment, but it's the perception that everybody else is having of them as well that makes it difficult. The one thing that I would encourage parents to do is to check yourself. If we are anxious and we're dysregulated and we're kind of freaking out about what's happening, we are not able to co-regulate with that child that's having the meltdown. So we need to check ourselves, kind of take our own deep breath, understand that we'll get through this and we can do this. And then once we're regulated, then we're better able to approach the child and coach and model like we need to.
Some good advice. And if people want to get in contact with you or your group there, Empowering Kids, how can they do that?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook page and we have a website. Just type in Empowering Kids Perm into Google, and that'll bring you to our website to let you know about what we do at our organization and some resources as well.
And then real quick here, I mean, what you all do is pretty impressive. You're one of the only autism centers from Fargo to the Twin Cities. Is that correct?
So I shouldn't say many, there are a couple of autism organizations between Fargo and Minneapolis. We are unique in that we are a nonprofit, and we also provide a different kind of therapy. Most organizations provide what's called ABA therapy, whereas we provide DIR floor time, which is a play-based therapy.
Some very good advice. Yeah, empowering kids out of Perm. Tiffany Topkin, thank you for joining us here. Coming up on today's show, live theater is coming back to Fargo. We'll have the details on that up next.